Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mr. Productivity Podcast. Hey, hop on over to my website, MrProductivity.com, M-I-S-T-E-R, MrProductivity.com. Got a good guest for you today. His name is Preston Smiles. He's a transformational leader, an abundance coach, and best-selling author who has impacted over 100,000 lives through his heart-centered approach to personal growth. With nearly 2 decades of experience, Preston empowers individuals to unlock their spiritual and financial abundance, heal trauma, and live their most fulfilling lives. As an award-winning millennial mentor and thought leader, Preston's unique ability to make complex ideas digestible, I love that, has made him a sought-after speaker, coach, and social media influencer with global impact. Preston, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Blessings and blessings. It's good to be here.
I checked out, you're really big on Meta. You're a Meta guy, Facebook and Instagram. You've got like over 300,000 followers on Instagram. Not that many on Facebook, but way more than I do. And I'm just excited because I'm 59 years young and I thought abundance was always about money. It took me till I was, I think, around between 45 and 48 before I realized, oh, there's abundance of mindset. There's abundance of health. And so abundance is not just about money, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Abundance is a state of being. It's a place that we live from. It's an understanding. I think the wiser one gets, and sometimes this comes with age and sometimes it doesn't, but the wiser one gets, the more they realize that we're on this planet for not very long. And the things that truly matter when it's all said and done are, was I loving, and did I create an impact and beautiful memories with the people that I love? And the rest of it is give or take. Like, I've had the good fortune of being what we would call a poor person, and I'm now experiencing what most would call being a rich person. And the beautiful thing that I get to look at and notice, and I tell some of my students sometimes, is you can still only poop in one toilet at a time. You can only sleep in one room at a time. And whether you have 14 rooms or 2, it's still the same. It's what consciousness are you bringing to those rooms, right? The game is to bring your own weather to the spaces that you want to experience, whatever weather you want to bring. So I choose to bring joy everywhere I go. Harmony, celebration, right?
I love that. I identify with Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. I am that annoyingly optimistically happy because if you're an Eeyore, and we all know Eeyores, and if you don't know who Winnie the Pooh is, go Google it, go to YouTube. I grew up in that era, so that's what I use. But there's 2 ways to say the same thing. You can say, oh, it's time to get up, or it's time to get up. Same words, different mindset. And I want people to understand, and I know you agree with this, it's about a choice. I'm going to choose to look at this day as a blessing. I'm not going to look at this day as something I have to do. It's something I get to do.
That part. That's one of the biggest, even what you just spoke to, is the distinction between have to and get to, and then add one more, blessed to. Right? You can go through, I have to wake up, I have to take the dog out, I have to. Then we can switch to, I get to wake up, I get to take the dog out, I get to change the diapers for the kids, which is my current situation. I get to drive my kids to school, or I'm blessed to wake up. Right? That has an entire different energy to it. I'm blessed to drive my kids to school. I'm blessed that I have a kid whose diaper will to be changed. Like, what a gift I get to be imbued with in this lifetime. And so it's really just about truly, actually, genuinely falling in love with the current life that you have in such a way that the universe, God, Buddha, Krishna, Jesus, whatever you want to call it, source, divine intelligence, that thing that rotates the planets, it has its own laws. We don't ever struggle with the law of gravity because it's just so there for us, right? When we see boats on water, we don't say, the law of buoyancy isn't a thing. It's just is, right? There's the law of circulation. There's different laws. I'm writing a book right now called Spiritual Millionaire, and this is what it's about. It's about understanding how to use these laws in our favor so that we may experience the fullest, most epic lives possible.
I once heard Gary Vaynerchuk say he knows people who make $50,000 a year and they're happy because they are always home at 5. They get to go to all the kids' games and recitals. And he said, I also know people who make $50 million a year who are miserable because they're always working. So I think money is a magnifier of who you are. So you can be happy and poor, happy and rich. You can be miserable and poor and miserable and rich.
That part. I've been all of those, and I choose happy and rich because money is a beautiful thing. It's been demonized for a lot of people. And the wiser I get, the more down the rabbit hole I get, the more I realize that when you're not worried about money, when you're not occupied with trying to get or keep up with the Joneses, then there's more space for our spiritual practices. There's more space for love, community, harmony. There's more space for creativity. One of my favorite quotes in the entire world comes from the Gnostic Gospels of Thomas, and it reads, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. But if you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. To me, that is straight facts. Each and every one of us has been hand-selected. We all have a divine curriculum that's particularly ours. And when we say yes to that thing, it's life-giving, life-affirming. We have energy. And when we say no to it because we're scratching and clawing and doing things that are outside of what is the truth of our being, it's toxic. It weighs us down. And I'm all for people really getting that the gift is in being a yes to what's handwritten on your soul.
That is so powerful. I once heard Marie Forleo say, we all have a gift. We're all here for a reason. And if you don't share that gift of yours with the world, you are robbing the world of that gift. Do you agree with that?
Facts. Yes, absolutely. I think that I spent 8 days in the woods by myself, no tent, 2 gallons of water, just sitting there. And yeah, it was intense and beautiful. And one of the things that I recognized was that noticing the different ant colonies and the coyotes that would come through as the sun was setting, and the birds at dawn, and the little spiders that noticed me when I walked down the path every morning to get a little bit of exercise. And just the whole thing was so trippy, but I really kept understanding that here today, gone tomorrow. And if a feather often flock together. And whatever your birds are, whatever your people are, whatever the thing that's your thing, if it's art, if it's the Spanish guitar, if it's stocks and bonds, whatever it is that is lighting you up, that's actually your piece to the ecosystem, right? The fruit doesn't belong to the tree. The fruit belongs to the ecosystem. It belongs to the rabbits and the worms and the birds and the whole thing. And so my fruit does not belong to me. My first job is to understand that I have fruit and to nourish myself in such a way that when I give it, it's from the overflow. It's not from an empty tank. And I think so many people give from an empty tank. They give out of obligation. They give because of social conditioning and programming from childhood. We all have safety strategies that we take on as children. Between 0 and 7 is usually when those strategies are cemented. And people will often go to their death still playing out the same strategy that they did to find safety in childhood. And so my work in the world of abundance isn't just about money or anything of that nature, yes to that, but it's also about personal freedom, right? Because you can't disown that which you have never owned. And so the moment I have owned, oh my God, I do this because my dad was X and my mom was Y. I do this because the bullies were like this. That's not who I am. That's who I became. What? Okay, then who am I? That's the fun part, right? Now we get to go figure that part out.
Yeah. There's a story in the Bible, which I have read it probably about 24 times by this time in my life. A story about the widow mites. And if you're not familiar with the story, in the temple back in the back in the biblical days, you'd have to go to temple to give a tithe. And the story is one guy, I guess he's a taxpayer or something like that, he was given out of his abundance, but the widow had 2 mites left, which is like less than a penny apparently. And Jesus said she gave out all she had. Well, they were given out of what's left over. And that comes down to what you're talking about, the abundant mindset. If I have $1 million, I make $1 million a day, and I give you a penny, I'm not being very generous. I give you a penny. But if I had 2 pennies and I gave you 1 penny, now I'm being more generous. I think people they're misconstruing what it means to be giving. I don't think you need to look at the amount you're giving. You need to look at your heart. Is this something, do I want to give this? Because some people want to give to a cause. I may not like that cause, but I give to this cause. But you got to give out of the cheerfulness of the heart. One of my pastors from back in the day said, God wants a cheerful giver, not someone goes, all right, here's $10. Because God doesn't need your money. He wants you to give because you feel like giving so you can help other people. I remember in 2017, we had a devastating hurricane here in Houston, Texas, where I live, Hurricane Harvey. And my wife and I were not in the position to help people back then. And I felt so bad, but we made some silly, not my wife, I made some stupid decisions. I take full ownership with that. And because I made those stupid decisions, I could not help people in need. I don't want to be there again. And I once heard Grant Cardone say, and this really changed my life in terms of abundance, because I was raised as the only child, my parents have passed away, that we don't talk about money, rich people are bad. And I heard Grant Cardone say, when you have a lot of money, you can help a lot of people. And that has always stuck to my brain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That goes back to the thing, right? Money has been so demonized, but Mother Teresa was on private jets. Somebody had to pay for all that stuff, man. And I think we demonize it and we deify it as well and put it up too much on a pedestal. And so my work, and just to give you a little bit of backstory, like even right now, I'm sitting, we have a 4-acre property. There's 3 houses on this property. I own all of them and the whole thing. And 11 years ago, I was a surf instructor living at my mom's house. And so for me to go from a guy at 33 living with my mom, teaching surf lessons, to multi-million-dollar houses and this big life, there was a lot of lessons I had to really come to grips with in this thing. And one of them that really trips people out is I stopped holding money. I stopped demonizing it and I stopped holding it so high. Right? I started treating money, this shirt I have on, right? This shirt and the shirt you have on that says G Glock on it, both of those shirts, the material of the shirt, the dye of the shirt, the people who made it, we all had a date with destiny. That was always going to be your shirt. And this one was always going to be mine. And so my job in the whole process is just to be a steward of the shirt while it is mine. And that's exactly the same truth I have around money. And so I'm a big yes to money. Not because it's my God, but because why not? It's just material. It's so trippy because somebody can look at a tree and they go, oh, that's valuable, kinda. Then you cut a slice off the tree and it becomes a piece of paper and you go, oh, kinda. We stamp this green thing on it and call it $100 bill. And now our entire world changes. Right? Well, to me, it's just material, all the same material. God, thank you for the materials. I will use all of it to the best of my ability to shine my light as bright as possible, to be a beacon, a vessel, a space, a demonstration for what is possible in this lifetime. That's it. The rest of it, you don't get to take any of it with you. And if you've ever had the gift, and I have, of watching someone die a bloody death, you understand this very deeply in your bones. And I've had so many experiences of seeing people at that last moment, the last single breath, them going into a place, a peaceful place. It's so interesting. There's a fight, and then there's peace. And then there's stillness, just like waves on an ocean. And I've been gifted that experience. And I say that The first time that happened, I became a spiritual millionaire because I instantly got what life was about. And that every breath I have on this beautiful planet is a gift.
People need to let that last statement sink in. We are not promised another day, another hour, another minute, another second. And if you're going, well, next summer in 2026, when my kids are gone, no, do it now. When you were talking there, it made me think of a funny story I heard. A guy, a very wealthy guy died. And when he died, he said, I want all my gold put in the casket. And this doesn't happen, but the casket and everything went up to heaven, and the angels come over and says, why'd you bring pavement? Because the roads are allegedly paved with gold. I don't know. I've never been to heaven yet. And I also remember a conversation I had with my father. My father passed away when he was 82. And every time a sports player would sign a multi-quadrillion-dollar contract, my dad would call me, I know you're a capitalist, Mark, but no one's worth that kind of money. I said, Dad, first of all, are you paying it? No. Yes. Okay. So why do you worry? You're not paying the salary. And we use the butt heads all the time on this.
That's actually one of I love that you made that fun with him, because a lot of people play out their lives and their money stories and their abundance stories through the lens of their parents. Right? It's very difficult. I've been in this work for 20 years, and people often ask me, like, what's the thing? And I'll say, oh, it's easy. It's parents, sex, and money. You break through parents, you end up breaking through money and sex. But those are the three biggest things that people struggle with, that I've been coaching so many people, and it always comes back to parents, right? And unhooking from the programming and the conditioning of our parents is one of the most difficult and most beautiful and rewarding things any human can do, is to just go, wait a minute. I don't know if I want to keep that, right? I love that my mom taught me this and this, but I don't know if I want to keep her story about men. I don't know if I want to keep her pain around buying real estate. I don't know if I want to hold on to the stress or the racism or the sexism or whatever else some people have. And so I love that your dad, and he felt safe enough to still reach out to you with his gripes, and that you were awesome enough to mess with him and go back and forth.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I was raised in a time, the 60s, the 70s, that we didn't talk about money. And the one thing I was never able to do, my mom lost her battle to Alzheimer's in 2022. And my dad died suddenly in 2023. I was never able to achieve the wealth to help them, because my first goal was, because my parents were depending on Medicare and Social Security, which is a recipe for disaster. I wanted to be able to give my dad a live-in nurse for my mom, so he wouldn't have to put my mom in the nursing home. Okay, I didn't get that. Then I wanted to be able to give my dad the best care. I couldn't get there, but I'm not giving up. I have no siblings. My parents are gone, and the drive is to help other people now. So I think you have to have a reason. You just can't be rich for the sake of being rich. Why do you want to be rich? For me, I want to help other people who are in pain, some kind of pain. And if you just say, I just want to become rich because I want to, I don't know, sleep in a ton of money, you do you. But for me, that doesn't hold any power. What gives me power is having the money to be able to help people. I don't have to know who they are. They don't have to know me. I could do it anonymously. I'm not doing it for any kind of credit. I just want to help my fellow human being.
Yes, that's absolutely beautiful. And that goes back to the birds of a feather often flock together. That's a part of, in my opinion, why I'm writing the book, is because there's a bunch of really beautiful hearted people like yourself and like myself who should be rich as heck. Why? Because we are givers and have been this way before there ever was any of that stuff. Like, I didn't get here by screwing people over. For the first, let's call it 13 years of my career, I made nothing. I did everything for free. Speeches, I would do anything just to help people. And then I figured out this could be a business. I didn't even know. It didn't even dawn on me that it could be a business. And so it's such a testament to why your podcast is successful, because of where your heart is. And the Buddha said, you will not be punished for your anger, but by it. And that makes me think of the opposite of it, right? You will not be rewarded for your giving heart, but by your giving heart. Like just the fact that it aches to give to another is the gift in itself. Whether you give $1 billion or $4, the gift is in that you want to. That's how I am. Like legitimately, I would spend the rest of my entire life doing that. It's in the fabric of my being. And one part, let me just put this here. I grew up in some very traumatizing situations. And also, I wasn't as beautiful as I am now in the eyes of the world. And so I was skinny, black, ugly kid from Compton that was a throwaway kid. I was a throwaway person. The LA Unified School District, nobody cared about kids like us. And so I know what it feels like to be at the bottom of society's eyes and to feel passed over. So for me, as I continue to lift up, that's the main people I want to help, is people who feel like they're passed over, like they're skipped over, who nobody's helping them figure out how to actually live a really good life. And most of those kids and people are so bamboozled and so brainwashed by the weapon of mass distraction in television and social media that they don't understand what really matters sometimes. And so again, a part of my work on this planet is reminding them of that. I get like these toys that I have, like the fancy cars and all that stuff. I show it not to show off, but to say, you can have these, but look who I am. Look who I'm being. These things are cool, but they're no different than a Ninja Turtle that I played with, or the G.I. Joes, or the Detour Dino bike, or the Game Boy. It's all materials. It all comes and goes. It will be trash or belong to another human one day.
I want to make sure people understand when you said 13 years you didn't make any money. And I've been podcasting for over 7 years, and people ask me, do you make a lot of money on the podcast? I use this as something called a lead magnet to get people to go to my website. But people want to start a podcast and they think Joe Rogan, $100 million Spotify contract, allegedly. I'm like, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You have to start a podcast, start a YouTube channel, go on TikTok with the heart to serve first. But everyone seems, okay, what video can I create to make so I go viral and make money? No, you're going about it wrong. And this applies to whether you make $50,000 a year or $50 million a year. And you've mentioned this several times in the show. It's got to start with the heart. Do you help people joyfully, or, oh, I guess I got money, I guess I got to help people? No, then don't help, because that's not, you should be doing it with a joyful heart. And I think a lot of people, like, for example, they give to church because they feel obligated. I think if you give to your church, you should give because you want to give, not because someone says, if you don't give, you're going to hell. That's not in the Bible, by the way. But I think it's not just giving in church. Maybe your neighbor is struggling with, I don't know, bringing their groceries in. That's a form of giving. Maybe your other neighbor, he hurt his knee and he can't cut his lawn, so you go over there and you cut his lawn for him. These are all forms of giving. So I want to make sure people understand giving is not just about money. It's about your time. It's about your love. It's about your respect.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. That is, to me, some of the most important principles to live by, whether you're a Christian or not. Like, it's how Jesus was, right? To be Christ-like is to operate from how can I best support? When Jesus said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, right? This dude was being nailed to a cross and his first thought was, forgive them, for they know not what they do. What a giving heart. That is the fundamental baseline for all true success in the form of fulfillment. Anybody can be successful. You can sell widgets, heartless widgets, but if you sell those widgets because little kids have so much fun spinning them, and there's something in you that goes, oh, I love that. Then those millions or however much you make selling those feel different, right? Not it's consciousness, it's vibration, it's energy. We know enough now, science-wise, to know that every single thing is vibrating. And there are things that vibrate at a quote unquote higher frequency and things that vibrate quote unquote at a lower frequency. Whether you understand the science or not, every one of us has been in a room where somebody came in and sucked the air out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Whether we
We've
know the
also been in
science
the room,
or not.
We've also been in the room where it's kind of like, and they walk in and boom, the energy lifts up.
That. Exactly. So again, there's a lot. I study all this stuff so much, and I study the different religions and the science and all the different things, and it all comes down to the same stuff, man. And so that's why it was important for me to really lean in and write this book, because it felt like anybody can get to a book. Not everybody can take our $1,000 program or $10,000 this or X, Y, and Z. And it was heavy on my heart in a good way to lean into this. I didn't want to write the book. I genuinely didn't. I'm dyslexic, and it's a challenging thing for me. And yet this is the chapter I'm in. And this is what I want to bring to anybody listening. All of life happens in seasons and cycles. And the game is to honor the season and the cycle that you're in and love it and ride that wave like it was exactly the wave you desired, right? Sometimes people will find themselves in a winter and they want summer so bad, but there's so much beauty in the winter if you actually accept it and celebrate what is occurring. And so I noticed I was in a season of, hey, slow down, go right. My personality said, no, I want to go. I want to make more. I want to travel. I want to X, Y, and Z. And the soul, threefold beings, body, mind, soul. Right? The soul knows. The soul has no work to do. It is done. It knows. But the body and the mind, they have their own intelligences. And so we're at our most powerful when the body, the mind, and the soul are all aligned at one target. And so my work was like, okay, what do I need to do to accept in the mind that this is my work to do right now? And I go through that process, and I'm sharing my process so you can think of it for yourself, right? Where do I need to go to fully accept this season that I'm in? What needs to occur from a forgiveness perspective? What shame do I need to share? What guilt is sitting on my heart that I need to release so that I can be fully here and present for my kids, for my community, for my church, for the people I say I care about? It's such a beautiful gift to do life intentionally. And I think that's what this whole thing is about for all of us, truly. If you're listening to something like this, you want to do life intentionally.
You mentioned that you are a surf instructor and you're living with your mom. The one question that popped in my head, you're living with your mom and you're a surf instructor. Now you're writing a book called Spiritual Millionaire. And I got to believe, I'm not going to say I tap into the listener, but how do you go from a surf instructor living with your mom to writing a book called Spiritual Millionaire? And now your toys have gone from G.I. Joe to nice cars. So take us back to what was going on in your life that caused this pivot.
Yes, absolutely. One of the first things I can speak to is I met a girl, and there's something that happens for us men sometimes that it's a primal thing where you're like, that's my girl. And now I got to go build this castle even more. That's part of the secret weapon, but I'll go back a little bit and share that. When I was 25 years old, I had a heart condition come up, and I was so scared. I didn't want to die. So I shifted everything on a dime, literally.
What were you doing
one
then?
day? So what I was doing back then was eating a bunch of McDonald's and Burger King and terrible stuff. And I hadn't processed any of the trauma that I experienced as a child. I had been very stressed out trying to save my dad because I didn't want him to overdose. And so from the age of 13 to 25, my body kept sending me signals. Hey, you need to let this go. Hey, you need to forgive. Hey, you need to tell people what happened to you. And I just held. And anything you hold tightly to at some point will give in and give up. And so my body, as a last ditch effort, rang the alarm on my heart. And I was so scared of dying that I switched everything in a day. So I went I was going this way, then I was going this way. And I was like a vegan, and I was reading all this stuff and watching documentaries. And it was this whole process of awakening to, wait, how did I get here? And my cup was so full that people started asking me what I was doing. And I didn't even know there was a career in it. I didn't know anything about that. I was sharing what I was doing and what I was reading, and meditation and prayer and time in nature and smoothies instead of junk food. And I was processing anger and deep sadness and shame and guilt from things I did earlier and all this stuff. And long story short, there was a point when I realized that this was a calling, that out of my greatest pain came my greatest gain. That out of my greatest rejection came a redirection. And so once I got it, I went, oh, okay, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to help people. And so I quit a career in Hollywood, acting and modeling and all that stuff. And I asked myself the question, what could I do in the meantime to make money that would still be in alignment with where I'm going? And I hope everybody is listening very clearly, because this was a very strategic move that worked. I quit a career. I left something that wasn't in alignment. Then I asked myself the question, what could I do that was in alignment, that could make me money while I'm setting myself up for this big career later on in life? And the first thing I thought of was like, I surf every day. I teach my friends how to surf. I just do it for free. What if I created a surf school called Smiles Surf School? And it would be the first spiritual surf school in LA. And I did. And it started going really well. And then I met a girl who's now my wife. And I knew she was my wife then. And I knew that I needed to invest more money into myself. I'm on a side note here. A bunch of millionaires and billionaires were polled. And they said, hey, if you got $100,000 extra, where's the best place to invest it? And all of them said, back into myself, back into my education. Now, I didn't know this stuff then. I know it now, right? But I was just some punk kid trying to figure it out. So I realized that if I got rid of my apartment and all my expenses, that money could go into training, learning how to speak, developing skills, like really becoming a better leader. And so I lived with my mom, and I took risks, and I invested in myself, and I bought my way into people's worlds because I didn't know anybody. And I learned a bunch of stuff, and I started applying it, and it started working, and it started working even more. And then I hired people to help me. And the first big launch I had was on Easter Sunday, 2014. And I made $50,000 in a day. And I had never made that ever. Like I had made $36,000 the year before, the whole year. And I made 50K in a day. Then I was like, oh, all this giving, because I was giving while I was doing this. I had a YouTube channel. I was giving. I was poor. I had $8 in my account most of the time, but I was serving and helping people. And then the surf school started taking off. And long story short, my wife had a really beautiful work ethic, and we started working together and putting things together. And I created a program, and that program did so well that I started, every time I ran it, I made about $200,000, and I would keep 100 for myself. Here's the piece that some of you want to hear is there's something called hyperbolic discounting. And what it essentially states is you could give, let's say we went to 10 people and we said, I'll either give you $100 today, or I'll give you $500 next week. Most humans would take the 100 today. I understood the gift in delayed gratification at some level. And so I kept taking those 100 off the top for myself. And I told myself my whole life I wanted to be a dad. I said, one day I'm going to be a dad. One day I'm going to be a husband. And I want to be able to buy my family a house. And I want to be able to buy my mom a house. So I still lived poor while I had $500K in my savings account. And it just kept going and going. And then one day, I looked around and I said, I'm going to get a Porsche. And I bought a house first, but it kept going. And I just took care. It's like I covered as many bases as possible. And then I started playing with it more. Right. And even still to this day, it doesn't mean that much to me. I just flew to Miami yesterday. Whether I was in first class or next to the toilet, we still all flew to Miami. Right. It's still the same plane. So at some point you just get, okay, it's more comfortable. Yeah. But still the same plane.
I remember I once heard Steve Harvey, he was talking about flying first class. And he goes, if you ever have a chance to fly first class, you will never be able to walk through first class again. So the month before my mom died, May of 22, we wanted to go see my parents. And my wife says, I'm going to book the tickets. Do you want to fly first class? I said, yes. So we bought first class. And then the next month, my mother passed away and I flew out there first class. Now, when my father passed away unexpectedly in April 23, there was no first class. I had to take the first flight out because my father just passed away suddenly. I'm in Houston. He was in Florida. Walking through first class, I understand exactly what Steve Harvey was saying. I'm just like, where am I going? I was so thankful I got to where I had to go, but he was 100%. Once you sit in first class, you don't want to walk through that section anymore.
It's better for sure. It's definitely better. And you outweigh it, right? Like we just
But you know what the funny part, Preston, is? This is so hysterical, and I know you'll relate to this. When I got to the destination, people were like, why did you spend the money on first class? I'm like, dude, I don't care what you spent your money on. Again, what I told my father.
Yes.
I said, did you pay for the ticket? You like cars. You like Air Jordans. You like fancy cigars. I like flying first class, so why do you care?
That's the piece, right? In the surfing community, you can buy a surfboard for $2,000, right?
Wow.
And people don't understand that because they're not surfers. But a surfer with a $2,000 board can look at somebody with a $3 million house and be like, why would you do that? It's all relative, but I do understand the comfort of first class for sure. It is definitely a game changer.
Mm-hmm. And it's the wider seats, and you only get like a stewardess who only takes care of that small section. And I always joke, you get there first. It's a joke. But the thing is, we get to choose how we're going to spend our wealth. And I know some people who collect Air Jordans. They never wear them. They just keep in the boxes. And I don't judge it because I'm a capitalist. I don't judge it. If that's your thing, some people like back in the day, the Beanie Babies. I just think we need to spend less time judging people. Unless you're paying for it, don't judge people. I'm a hermit. I told you about this in our pre-interview call. I very rarely leave my house. But if I leave my house, I'm going to leave under my condition. So I hire an Uber. I get the better car. I fly first class because that's how I want to spend my wealth. And it brings me joy. Yes. I don't do it like you mentioned about your car. It's just things to you. You're not trying to brag. I don't fly first class to brag. One of these days my next step up is the fractional ownership of private aircraft, which is pretty cool because you're all alone in the plane. Of course, that's a step up, but I think you have to have big dreams. And now maybe your big dream is not to fly first class or fly private or have $1 million home. But I think you need to have dreams. Mother Teresa had dreams. She wanted to bring peace and joy to everyone she came in contact with. So I did want to encourage people. I hope that they're hearing this passion in your voice. You're here for a reason. And nowhere in the Bible, I've read the Bible through and through at least a dozen times. Nowhere in the Bible does it say God wants you to become a curmudgeon or to be an Eeyore. He wants you to experience life for all it has to offer. And so I hope you're hearing the joy that is emanating from Preston on the show today.
Yeah, man. I truly appreciate the opportunity even to speak to this crew. It's been a pleasure to meet so many different cool people like yourself. It's sometimes, especially the entrepreneurship world, can feel lonely if you're not being super intentional about it. And so it's just always good to know that there's other humans out there, even if we don't share exactly the same beliefs or things of that nature. At some level we do. And even for me, and I know you've mentioned the Bible quite a bit, to me, God is love, and we're all unique emanations of that God, of the Most High. And our job here is to reflect and reveal that love in only the way that we can, uniquely in the way that we can. And it's just really cool to see how you do it, and to see that 7 years ago you made a commitment to something, and here we are, right? Living in your commitment, living in your discipline, living in and experiencing the fruit from your tree because you said yes. You said yes to something before you really understood what it would take. That deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm over 1,300 episodes now, over 7 years and 2 months. And had you told me in July 2017, when I started the podcast, that in 2024, you'll hit 1,300 episodes, I'm like, oh, you're crazy. Now here I am, and I love it. And I don't really care what the downloads number, where I am on the charts. I'm doing this because I love podcasts. I tell every coach I invest in, do not tell me to quit the podcast, because I'm not ever going to quit the podcast, because I have too much fun. I would never have met you were it not for the podcast.
Yeah.
And so this brings me joy. I'm not getting rich off the podcast, and that's okay, because I am so abundantly wealthy with joy as a result of this show.
That it's a different kind of richness. It's actually in many ways a better kind of richness, because the truth is you will not starve to death. The truth is that you'll always have a home. You'll always have people who love you. You'll always have clothes. None of the things that really matter, you will always have. And so you will, when you do pass, and when I do pass, we will die rich men. Not because of the things we have, but because of the character and the spirit from which we lived. And that is the point of this life.
Look how wealthy Mother Teresa was, and she had nothing, but she was one of the wealthiest people on this planet when she passed away.
What a feeling, right? What a feeling. It feels so good. Let me just say this. It feels so good when I go to sleep at night, knowing that I spent my day doing and being what was mine to do, be, and have. That is a great feeling. And I know some of you are adjacent. You're close to, you're on the side of what is yours. And I just want to challenge you every day to find a way to get to the stuff that makes your heart smile, right? Whether you can see the clear path, or whether you may not even want it to have to do with money. I just want you to follow your bliss, because there is a unique, beautiful satisfaction in laying down on that bed and going, yep, I did what I was put on this planet to do today.
You cheated, because I normally ask that guest, what is one thing you want to leave the listener with? And that's a perfect thing right there. Folks, if you missed it, rewind, go back, watch it again, because you have one shot at this thing called life. That's it, one shot. And you don't want to be a curmudgeon. You don't want to be an Eeyore. You want to be a Winnie the Pooh, a Tigger, or a Christopher Robin. So thank you for sharing that with us. So where can people go to find out more about you and what you're doing in the world?
PrestonSmiles.com/book. You can get my new book there, Spiritual Millionaire. It's out October 1st. So depending on when this is out, it may be out, but it's also pre-orders for that. And anywhere you find podcast or YouTube or Instagram at Preston Smiles, I'm pretty easy to find.
Yes, you are. And I'm a little envious. I have not been able to get Instagram to work for me. I've been stuck right around 648. You have at least 308,000. So goes off to you. That's very impressive. And so follow him on Instagram, follow him on Facebook. He's also on X and he's also on LinkedIn. But his big platform that I can tell is Instagram. So, I mean, you're rocking it out there. So good for you. So go to his website, pick up his book. And if you listen in audio, you miss to see this handsome young man. You miss to see the book. So if you're not listening on video, you're missing a lot. And he's like me. He's constantly moving around, got a lot of energy. You can't get that on the audio podcast. So maybe you want to go back and watch it again on the video. So Preston, so much for being here. Folks, don't forget to go to MrProductivity.com. After you go to PrestonSmiles.com, go to MrProductivity.com, MISTER, MrProductivity.com. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Until we meet again, which will be happening real soon, be productive and stay positive.